welcome and good morning. We are First Sip by Draft for Upside. I am Brewery Mark. With me on the phone is Danger Cole.
How you doing, buddy?
Good,
I'm
good.
gonna I'm gonna podcast and drive today. I hope that's okay.
Hey, you sound fantastic for being on the phone.
I
Um,
like it.
and also joining us from remote on the phone is Chris Emmerich.
I've already driven. I'm parked. I'm safe. I'm ready to go.
All right. So it sounds like, why don't we start off with a little recap? But it sounds like we did pretty well in the NBA last night.
Yeah, so it was a three-game slate. Unfortunately for me, I didn't do that well because I took a kind of contrarian approach to it. I listened to a couple other podcasts late, and it seemed like a lot of people were kind of leaning towards the Oklahoma City New Orleans game, trying to get a little contrarian with Anthony Davis because he was cheap on DraftKings. So while I had a couple lineups that had Anthony Davis and took that approach, the majority of my lineups were filled out with this Orlando Charlotte game. I just felt like if this could be competitive, people weren't talking about it. People were going for the value in the New York Atlanta to help pay for the studs in the Oklahoma City New Orleans game, which could have been a blowout. And if it had been, I probably would have profited a little bit more. But what ended up happening instead was the Orlando Magic looked like the greatest team that's ever played basketball, just destroying the Charlotte Hornets. They were up by like 35 at half. I think they won by like 20 or 30. They've gone through this stretch where they've been fantastic, not only putting up monster points on the offensive side of the board, but also limiting the other team to really pedestrian scores. And so as a result, a lot of the accessory pieces on the Hornets that I was playing, like Kemba Walker, Jeremy Lamb, Marvin Williams, they just didn't produce. Everybody except for Cody Zeller had a good game. And then on the other side of that, the Magic, Jonathan Isaac had a decent game. A couple other guys had a decent game, but because of that big lead, you saw a lot of the bench guys come in and produce. Wes Iwundu, Briscoe, and some of these guys were people that you might have filled into your lineup if you were playing three of the studs. Now, that being said, the Oklahoma City New Orleans game went off. Russell Westbrook had a huge game, but unfortunately for me, my lineups that were doing really well were catapulted into the abyss as Anthony Davis just decided he didn't want to come out and play the second half because his shoulder hurt, but apparently he may actually play in the All-Star game. So how hurt was his shoulder? I'm going to go with not at all. Anyway, so if you had the right construction and you had the right pieces in terms of the value on the Knicks and the Hawks, you could have a very, very good game. But like Alonzo Trier, who was kind of popular, had like 1 point, whereas somebody like Dotson scored 24 or 25, which is a last-minute recommendation for Danger, who did a little bit better than I did in terms of return on investment. Now, the one thing I will say is we are heading into this All-Star break on a 4-0 run for bet of the day. We're going to take a little break here for a week. I looked at the Rising Star Challenge, USA versus the World, and I don't really have an opinion on it. I'm going to stay away from that showdown slate, and I'm a pretty big degenerate. So if you want to play it, that's fine. I'll have my AAF articles out later today, so you can have those two. Go through your lineups and whatnot, and do those type of things. So they'll be out later today. I won't spend any time researching this DGen showdown slate or the All-Star game. But maybe I'll put up an article on the odds of who should win the 3-point contest and the dunk contest. But the other activities I'm gonna steer clear from.
Yeah, do a little
Nice.
monkey knife fight for the NBA All-Star game.
Yeah, maybe. Well, Chris, you've been on fire with these picks and the NBA picks, and you texted us yesterday and you said, guys, play the NBA. I got some great takes, and it sounds like you didn't take all of your advice because you told me start with PG-13 and Russell and then fill in, and that worked for me, man. You got me 2.5 times my money, so I appreciate you, buddy. My $3 is now $7, and man, that feels great.
Well, hey, I said you got to start with PG-13. He was a must-play for me, and then I said you could either go Russell Westbrook or Kemba Walker. And I did go Kemba Walker in most of my lineups, and then I had Russell Westbrook in a couple as well. I played 5 lineups last night. The
Like,
challenge was everything that I had Russell Westbrook in, I had Anthony Davis in. So, look, I think the NBA is the most competitive and the most difficult of the DSF or DFS games just because there are so many resources. People know what to do. And even the most minor of mistake can really catapult you into that abyss, like I said. So, it's a difficult sport that you have to focus on that roster construction and then just hope that the variance falls in your favor. It's not too unlike baseball in that effect. But hey, I'm glad you won.
well, my money will be put to the test of Mark now to build me an NHL lineup that will cash for me tonight. So.
Yeah, I just take my goalies with a grain of salt. Although I did hit my goalie last night for the first time in 4 tries.
Noise. I like it. So, Chris, while we have you, I know that you're going to be running off here pretty soon. I was listening this morning to a news brief saying Colin Kaepernick had turned down an opportunity to play in the AAF. Well, I shouldn't say turned down. He said he wanted $20 million, which is a little crazy.
It seems like a lot, but I wonder what the AAF's marketing budget was. I mean, if it was in that realm, I mean, you could have just paid him and then not had to, market the league at all because he would have done all the marketing, the buzz around it, the media would have done it for you. But I mean,
right.
Here's what it comes down to is at this point, I'm getting kind of sick of it. I do think that he was treated unfairly by some of the teams at first, but the longer he's separated from football, what are you going to go pick up a guy that hasn't played in a couple of years, who wasn't a top flight quarterback in the first place? He did well in a system when he was younger, but he's not a guy that progressed through the reads. He had a good arm. He was very athletic, but again, he wasn't a guy that would get you to the second or third read. And so I think the money that he's asking for is probably disproportionate to what his actual skill level is. And then certainly with, the baggage that comes along with him, it's one of those things that it creates a circus, much in the same way that like Tim Tebow does for very different reasons. Why do you want that guy on your team? It's just going to be a distraction, and he's not a top tier talent that's worth the distraction. Like let's say a Josh Gordon, was like you take a chance on Josh Gordon because he is possibly a generational talent. Colin Kaepernick is a average quarterback that had a few really, really good years with some good runs,
Yeah, and Mark and I talked about it briefly this morning when we were getting ready to come on today, and there's a couple questions here about that. One, the contracts there are only $250,000 over 3 years, so they weren't going to pay him $20 million. But there's two arguments here. I can see both sides. One, if I'm Colin Kaepernick, I worry about either getting into that and not being the best quarterback and best athlete on the field, and then therefore ruining his value to come back into the NFL. On the other hand, you could take a look at it as, yeah, I am that good. Let me get into this league. Let me be the most dominant person on the field and show all these NFL owners I need to quit being blackballed. Because frankly, yeah, he's not the greatest quarterback. I'm a 49ers fan. I enjoyed the run, but I think he could start in the NFL. I think he's better than 5 or 6 guys that have starting jobs now. So, but it's an interesting paradox to see what the value of him actually playing in that league would turn out to be.
Look, I don't even think he wants to play in the NFL, man. I think he wants the price is right for everybody. There's a price for everything. And I think if he was offered the right price in the right situation, he would obviously take it. But I don't think he wants to play. It's just one of those things that it's easier to step back and say, hey, these guys are doing this. But I, at this point, I just don't think he wants to play. And you're right. He would have to produce there, and he would be a top-tier talent in that particular league, and I think he would do very, very well. But, I just don't think he wants to play, man. I really don't.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I think Tebow's still taking that run at baseball, which is probably where he belongs anyways. So, yeah.
Well, and here's the thing: is I think Kaepernick would be a top arm talent quarterback in the AAF. I think Tebow would, despite the lack of talent there, still be a bottom level arm talent quarterback in the AAF. You can build the system around him, but you talk about inaccurate quarterbacks, and that's your guy.
Yeah, for sure.
So, Chris, why we have you? AAF. So, just really quick, I'm guessing everybody's going to be playing the top players this week. Are you looking to fade them or play them?
As we talked about on our show, I think the one player that you can get some leverage in GPPs that I don't think will be as highly owned or is being as talked about as some of the others is Jaquan Gardner. I thought he looked really, really good. I think some of the guys that you could fade would be like Farrow, Richardson. I'm all aboard the Presley train. So a quarterback, don't get too cute. Play Gilbert, play I think it's Wolford from Arizona. Play one of those two guys, play Presley, and then plug in a couple other guys. I think Jaquan Gardner is a guy that'll be a little bit lower owned. And Josh Huff from Arizona is another guy that I think could have an opportunity, or even any of the Atlanta guys. Now, I will come out here and make a bet. Bet of the day, bet of the weekend is going to be Salt Lake plus 7.5. I'll go so crazy as if you really wanted to and you're feeling kind of lucky, go ahead and take them on the money line. I think Salt Lake is much better than they're getting credit for. They got throttled by the best team in the league, but they still scored 22 points on what looks like the best team, whereas Birmingham only scored 26 points on what looks like the worst team. So, again, context is important. I think Salt Lake plus 5 or 7.5 is going to be Friday's first sit bet of the day.
Yeah, and I know Trent Richardson on Birmingham is kind of their workhorse, but I'm really falling in love with Ladarius Perkins this week. And one of the things that stands out to me was 7 targets that he caught 6 of.
That backfield, whoever ends up being the receiving back is going to have some opportunities. The problem with Trent Richardson is the same problem with Perkins, is that what kind of touchdown equity do you have in either of those players? Richardson's going to pay off his salary on a weekly basis if he can get some red zone runs. Within the 5-yard line, I should say, in the third and fourth quarter when the defense is a little bit more tired. Absent of that, he's not breaking any big runs. He's not going to run with chunks and give you any average. But if he can catch some passes, he was open in the flats. So was Perkins. And so that's, like you said, that's a good pick. It's an astute pick because 7 targets, if he catches, 4 or 5 of those, which he should, they're high efficiency passes, gets 40 yards out of them. Yeah, you're looking at 9 points right there. If he can break a big one, he could be a real game changer for you.
Yeah, and he's only 4,800 on Fanball, where Richardson's 7,000. So it seemed like a good, value pick for this week.
And you could go something like you could put them together in a lineup. Go like a Presley, Perkins, Gardner, and then load up on some other high-end receivers. Maybe Rashard Ross, who is a guy that I really, really like. But again, he's going to be popular, and was his usage in week 1 indicative of what it's going to be moving forward? Without any other additional data, it's a coin flip. It's 50-50. Yeah, it could be. Maybe it is half the time. So, we'll see. I think we'll have a better picture of everything after week 2. We're still playing a little bit of the guessing game because we're really, really low on information right now.
Right. Danger, any AAF advice or questions?
Yeah, I think you guys pretty much covered it. We talked about those players. I have the same guys on my list for those running backs. I like Huff too. I don't know. I just I see Berkovich got benched already. Is he actually getting benched from poor play, or is he getting benched because he got the absolute shit knocked out of him in that game?
Maybe he's just too handsome. He's a good-looking guy, and maybe everybody else is just a little bit intimidated. I would look to see like a guy like Trevor Knight. If you're in a season-long league, I would say stash Trevor Knight off of plays for Arizona. He was a top prospect, thought that he was going to be one of the top quarterbacks in the league, but Wolford beat him out. And I wouldn't be surprised if one of these teams that is having quarterback trouble, like, half the league, might make some type of trade. I think it would be interesting. I don't know how that works or the dynamic, but it would be in the best interest of the league to get all of these high-profile quarterbacks, the Aaron Murray, Trevor Knight, some of these guys that just are better overall than what we saw last week out there and in front of the public.
Right. I mean, it's being built as a developmental league, so you think that they would be really interested if there's, great depth on one of the teams to just move those guys over to where they get more opportunities and playing time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll see. Should be a fun season.
Yeah, it's going to be entertaining. So I want to mention real quick before you go, I'm going to screenshot it because it might be the only time this year, but I'm in first place in our golf challenge, huh?
Oh, yeah? I haven't even looked.
Mr. Tony Finau, Jason Kokrak, and our good buddy Kang are keeping me in the lead. If Louis Oosthuizen can get off his ass and come back to even today, I'm feeling pretty good. He's the only guy. I got everybody else is 2 under or better, except for Louis, who's +4. But I'm in the lead for the day. It was a weird thing. Have either of you ever seen a tournament started, even with a few holes, and then postponed for the next day, but the PGA Tour decided to wipe the first few holes out for the group that had started already? That was a strange thing. Probably the right call, but I'd never seen anything like that before. That was weird.
Yeah, I did a little research, and I guess the last time it happened was 2014. They did it for another tournament where they only got off to a 1 or 2 hole start. So
that's interesting. So I didn't know that they would do such things. So that was a learning experience for me.
Yeah, it did seem strange, but whatever.
Yeah, it is what it is.
All right, so we're down to about 7 minutes here.
Yep.
So
what you got for hockey for me? I'm going to get my DraftKings open, and you're going to take another of my $3, and you're going to make me $7. That's the standard that has been put forth by Christopher, and you must back it up.
All right. Well, first I got to toot my own horn a little bit from last night. It was a mixed bag, but I finally got goalie right. I said take St. Louis over Arizona, load up against Arizona, and St. Louis came through with a shutout. So Jordan Binnington was one of the highest pointed goalies on the night. And I also said load up on Chicago against New Jersey, and that paid off too. Now, Chris, I'll give you credit. So Chris was asking me about Tampa yesterday, and I was fading Tampa because they're all high-priced players. You don't know who's going to score, and they're going up against one of the best defenses in the league. Well, Tampa just blew the doors off of Dallas 6-0. Kucherov and Stamkos just had huge games. Kucherov's on the heater of the century right now. And, I wish I would have thrown him in the lineup.
Right. So looking at today's slate, we only have 4 games, Mark, and we have one clear money line advantage is Minnesota over the New Jersey squad here. Is there any reason to start anyone besides Dubnyk in your goal today?
Well, I like Dubnyk in either cash or GPP. But the other one I'll throw out there is McHenry from Carolina. Mm-hmm. So Edmonton does put a lot of shots on goal, but they're not, other than Connor McDavid, they're not good quality scoring chances. And I lean towards home goalies, so he's going to save you $100 on DraftKings and still has a great chance to win. The only goalie I'm kind of avoiding is Buffalo. Just Buffalo and the Rangers. Even though the money line is favoring Buffalo, they just always play each other good. So those are my 2 picks for goalie.
No love for Jaroslav Halak today?
No, it's just one of those games I'm just not comfortable with. The Rangers always seem to beat Buffalo. But
so are you proud of me? I pronounced 2 names and didn't screw them up.
Yeah, there you go. You got Dubnyk, so there you go.
Yeah.
No, and I'm leaning towards Carolina and Minnesota in most of my games. That's where I'm going. On the high end centers, I want to go with Aho and Carolina. I do like Eichel, Buffalo against New York. There's just not a lot of value at center tonight. Once you get past the top end guys, there's just really not a lot of players there. Um, Same with defense. You're going to want to target high in defense tonight. I'm leaning towards Dougie Hamilton for Carolina, and I love Spurgeon on Minnesota tonight. They're two of the higher priced defensemen, but at 5,500, they're not too bad. So where you're going to get value tonight is in the wing. My favorite two value picks, and I will have these guys in all my GPP lineups, is Smenetsnikov from Carolina. He's been shooting the puck a ton. He's a third liner, but he's getting a little bit of power play time. He's only 4,300 on DraftKings. And I love Jason Zucker at Minnesota tonight. He's been promoted up to the top power play, and he's averaging about 3 points a game. He's only 4,700, and he's going against New Jersey. The other note about playing Minnesota tonight: New Jersey's on the second half of back-to-back, both games on the road, and they're playing their backup goalie. So Minnesota is going to be a lot of chalk. You need to look for these second, third line guys. Jason Zucker fits that perfectly.
For sure. So if you're looking at top line guys, a guy I actually recognize the name is Zach Parise. Are you a fan tonight?
Yeah, I do. I love Parise tonight. It's just if you can fit him in 6,700, he's in the top 2% of the salaries for DraftKings. If you can fit him in, fit him in. New Jersey can't stop anybody. So
All right. So the lineup I've constructed so far, most of the guys that you have named, obviously, I've slung a few in there, but I got to get low now because I played a couple of higher guys. I need to look below 4,000, probably from the center position. Any love for value centers?
No, it's a really tough slate for value centers tonight. You gotta go below 4.
Well, I could go to the utility spot below 4. I got to get somebody below 4.
Somebody below 4. All right.
And I can put it in the utility. So any spot below 4 in the utility, you give me that, and I think I can put a lineup together that will double my money again.
Oh, let's see here.
Otherwise, I can take Parise out and I can get more balanced. But if you got somebody under 4, I'm pretty happy. There's names that I actually know, and I might watch some hockey tonight.
Oh, all right. You know what? This is a little bit of a flyer, but he's been playing really good. He's only $3,800. Jason Pominville from Buffalo.
I dig it, man. Yeah, I'm putting a single entry $1 into a 1,800 person GPP. So flyers are good.
Yeah, I think he'll be pretty low owned, and he's been playing really good lately. And they're going up. They play the Rangers tough, but it should be a fairly decent high-scoring game. So there you go.
I dig it, man. I appreciate it.
All
So I
right.
hooked up that 4K TV, homie.
Yeah, how'd it go?
Yeah. It went all right, man. But I found out the hard way that Disney and Marvel and all those great movies on Netflix, they only put their standard HD, not even their HD plus, UHD, or 4K, nothing, just the standard HD. Of course, because if you want to watch it in 4K, you're going to buy the actual disc or the digital download from them.
Yeah.
So, I was a little saddened, but I popped on Blue Earth 2 on there. Woo, baby, does that look good.
Yeah. What brand did you get?
I ended up buying the Samsung.
Oh,
So,
yeah. Well, they're the top TV manufacturer, so.
Yep, I'm kind of turning myself into a Samsung house here, so I just kind of kept the theme going. I even bought a Samsung washer machine. So.
Yeah, just make sure you keep those microphones off because they're listening.
Oh man, they listen all the time. That's crazy. My wife and I are actually going out for a couple of cocktails tonight, and there's a little place called the Silver Pig in Howell, and we just literally were chatting about going to the Silver Pig, and I got an email, and this is totally coincidence. I got a promotional email from the Silver Pig saying, hey, come out for Valentine's Day. But it was 1 minute after we started talking about
Yeah,
it.
I don't know. I don't know. I think your new TV just got some revenue. All right,
I think it.
we got to get out of here. We got to get out of the way. Coming up next is Top Billing with Bill Waters. You're listening to First Sip by Draft for Upside and the Lenny Melnick Fantasy Sports Network, Legend Sports Network, and we'll see you all on Monday.